Tell me in a sentence who you are. Nobody.
Episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Robert LaSardo.
Well, look at this person. They're just playing themselves, or they're playing. Because here's the thing, man. It's a visual medium, and a lot of people go by how things appear. They want to look at beautiful things, beautiful people. It doesn't matter what form the person takes, but it's important to recognize that if you look way back into the golden age of Hollywood, even then, they put people in front of the camera they felt that the people would find appealing visually, even in silent movie pictures, there weren't any talking. So it was how you looked. And I think it's important to remember how you appear. You may have within you a romanticist, a philosopher, a scientist, all these other qualities. But if you don't look like the stereotypical scientist or the stereotypical leading man or the stereotypical whatever, they probably won't hire you. Yeah. Unless there's a push to hire because of an agenda. And that makes sense. There's nothing wrong with that. I get it. But I'm just saying, there's a lot of things variables that go into this, man, in terms of why they cast who they cast. And people, I don't think, really get that. Some do, some don't. If you've been in the industry long enough, you start to see a pattern over time. And you either roll with it or you roll against it, Doesn't mean you have to become a homunculus and become, moronic. You can still, they may control what you say. They can't control what you think. So when you have opportunities to perform, you can demonstrate to the best of your ability within the limitations of the writing, something greater than what they've created for you in the way you perform. They can't limit you. Only you limit you.
So what was it like to get out of the military and your first role that you took getting out of the military? What was it like to have your first acting job?
Well, Bill, the first, I tell you, it was surreal, man. It was surreal. I got an offer after multiple auditions and callbacks for a studio movie, Warner Brothers film, entitled Moving, starring Richard Pryor, Dana Carvey, Randy Quaid, Rodney Dangerfield. I mean, I should go on the list of, iconic celebrities from back in the day. And I was beside myself when I got the call from my agent that I was going to Hollywood. But it was a almost an insidious process, man, of just going back in there and having an audition for the vice president of Warner Brothers casting, and then meeting the director and the producer. Man, it was nerve-wracking. It was exciting and terrifying all at the same time, and you're wondering, well, man, they're calling me back for round 2 and they're calling me back for round 3, and then they narrow it down to 3 other people that you're competing against, and you're like, fuck, pressure's really on, man, and you just go in there like a fighter with your blinders on, and you look at your opponent, which is you, not them. You have to you have to get over your fear, or embrace the fear and move through it with conviction, and hope that all the work you've done will resonate in those who observe and judge you. And in this case, the judgment was, you have the job. You've succeeded, son. And now we're going to fly to California under contract with Warner Brothers for 3 months, man. And I got to meet Richard Pryor and work with legendary talent, man. So it was one of the most, I think, from point of view of here, my heart, is probably the most endearing experience I had professionally.
Yeah, Richard Pryor, all those people you named, Rodney Dangerfield. Man, I used to watch his movies when I was a kid.
Yeah.
the diving board, right? He had they were like high diving in one of the movies. He was a coach or something like that. It's hilarious. So what was it like being around them? on the set?
It was scary at first, you know, but then you know, Richard Pryor was so nice to me, man. He treated me like a friend. He said, "Hey, what are you doing next week?" And I said, I'm at the hotel." And he said, "Well, you want to come over to my house and watch the Sugar Ray Hagler fight?" I was like, "Oh, yeah." And so he had a driver came pick me up, and then I'm sitting next to him and some of his friends, and we're watching the fight. And I'm thinking to myself, a couple of years ago, I was in the Aleutian Islands, in the middle of nowhere, and I was playing records, literally listening to Richard Pryor stand-up on these LPs. You know, the old records they had, the LPs you could listen to stand-up comedians. I was listening to his stand-up routine on a record, and now here I am sitting next to him. So it was too much to, you know, some things you go into shock. It takes a while before it registers that it actually happened, you know.
Yeah.
If anybody would have told me, you know, while I was stuck in this prison in the middle of Siberia, that check it out, I got to whisper something to you. Here's my crystal ball. And about a little over a year out of the Navy, you're going to be in Hollywood sitting next to Richard Pryor. You know, that sounds insane, man. But it happened. So I was just grateful. I can just say to you, I was just grateful because I didn't even think I was going to, you know, if I consider my history and some of the choices I made in my earlier life as a young man, didn't think I'd even live to 22 or 23 or however old I was when I got out of the military. I was 22, and then I think when I went to do the movie, I was either 23 or 24. It wasn't long after. So I couldn't believe I had turned my life around to such degree. And I think some of the people around me couldn't believe it either. And not everyone was nice about it. You know, it's ironic that the same people trying to tell you get your life on track are the same people that when you do that, they kind of hate on you for it. It's kind of a weird phenomenon.
You changed, right? You're the one that changed.
It's like, wait a minute, guys. You guys told me to do this, and you do it, and yeah, but we didn't expect you to pull it off. It's kind of like what's his name? John Cassavetes movie, the film in the 70s, Killing of a Chinese Bookie. Ben Gazzara owns a strip joint, right? And then he owes money to the mob, and they say, listen, I'll tell you what, you kill this guy, we'll settle the debt. So he goes, kills this guy, right? And he calls the guys up and said, I killed the guy. And they said, you killed him? He said, yeah. Oh, you know who you killed? No, I didn't really care about that. You just told me to kill the guy and then pay off the debt. But you killed this Asian man who's one of the most powerful organized crime figures. So I go, okay, well, but is the debt settled? He said, well, no, we got to kill you now. Why? Because we didn't think you'd be able to do it. We sent you on a suicide mission. So I never forget that, man. So he went and did what he was told. He did it, pulled it off, and then for his efforts, they put a hit out on him. I'm not trying to make it all dark or anything or blame anybody for nothing. I'm just saying, be careful, people out there, when you try to impress people in your life, because the same people motivating you or seemingly motivating you will be the same people that'll be judge and jury to your execution.
Yeah. So was that first role, was that like the catalyst to be like, I really want to do this and this?
No, it actually, no. I would say, well, yes. 50-50. It's like that book. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times, because it was an opportunity, man, for me like no other. I had basically pulled a lottery ticket, right? Here's the catch, though. This man that was representing me at the time, my agent, who I thought was my friend, he basically turned down a 3-picture deal with Warner Brothers on my behalf. And Stuart Kornfeld, who was one of the producers on that movie I was telling you about, he went on to produce movies like Tropic Thunder. He did a lot of the Ben Stiller movies. And he came up to me one day on set and said, Robert, can I talk? I said, sure. He said, I'm a little concerned. He said, I don't know if your agent realizes how talented you are, because he couldn't get his mind around the fact that the agent was turning down a 3-picture deal with Warner Brothers. And I was too green to know that was probably one of the worst choices anybody can make career-wise. For me, I would, if someone presents a deal like that with the studio, you don't walk away from a studio deal unless you're out of your mind. But apparently the agent thought it was good medicine for me, and thought it'd be better that I come back to New York and audition for roles like Punk, Mugger #1, stuff like that. He said, well, here's my I said, what's your philosophy?
Didn't bring it by you? He didn't run it by you?
Yeah,
nothing?
He did. I asked, well, he did and he didn't. He gave the illusion of a democracy when it was really a monarchy. He was dictating to me the like the tablets. Moses come down from the mountain with the tablets of the law and the fundamentals of what we need to do, Rob. This is what we need to do. We need to basically keep a situation where you have room to explore and audition for a variety of things. If you get locked up in a contract with Warner Brothers, you're not going to be able to compete for other things. I said, okay, seems like a reasonable argument, but here's the catch. What I was competing for was nothing. There was Mugger #1, Punk,
Yeah.
Thug Number, all that kind of stuff. And Warner Brothers saw an ability, Marion Doherty, like I said, the vice president of casting, and some other people, the director, Richard Pryor, a bunch of people said to me, you have great talent, whatever. And they wanted to groom me for things that were much more substantial. So though the agent had a point that if I agreed to marry Warner Brothers for 3 years or whatever the deal would be, he was correct in that I would be exclusive with them, but why not be exclusive with a company that wants to create characters that have depth and are fleshed out, that aren't caricatures? So he basically, I won, but I lost because he basically had me come back to New York and put me in a position where I had to compete for things. It's like kind of like this, like you win the lottery and then you got to give the money back and you're poor again. That's what it felt like, because I'm standing on the corner in New York going, what happened to the Hollywood thing? I was just in Hollywood working with movie stars. Warner Brothers saw me and said, hey, we want to give him a 3-picture deal. Agent goes, I don't know. And then next thing you know, the deal poof goes away because he said no twice. Because Stuart Kornfeld wasn't the first time. He came up to me 2 times because he was at a desperate attempt, because he saw the ruination of an opportunity and he didn't want me to mess up. But I didn't have any. I was green, man. I didn't know. If I knew it's like 20/20 hindsight. We all have it. If I had known what I know now, I would have fired the agent on the spot or told him, listen, you either take that deal, man, or like, I'm going to call the union, or I'll just come to you and I'll sit down. I'll make it real clear. You work for me. I don't work for you, man. I like you, but we ain't friends, especially if you're trying to put me in the grave, man, by sending me back to a place that has trigger points where I'm going to get back into trouble. I'm going to be on the corner. Ironically, he saw me one day, the agent, and said to me, hey, Rob, get off the corner. I said, hey, man, you put me back here. You put me back here, man. But it's cool. Like, you got to get over things. It didn't stop me. So to answer your question, it was a catalyst to motivate me, even though I won the fight and lost the fight. You win a fight, you've seen fights where you go, hey, he won, but they give the decision to somebody else. So I lost the fight, but I didn't lose my determination to survive, because what I came away with is that the memory of all the positive things that were said to me while I was in LA working on that movie set. I never forgot any of that stuff. And I used that as my holy grail, as my faith and conviction to continue on in a journey that was made much harder for me because of people in power that they thought they knew what was best for me. So I just kept fighting. It's like Maximus in Gladiator, he says, he says, Rome is the light. I've been to all parts of the world. It's all darkness. And Caesar says, yeah, but you have not been there. You haven't seen what Rome has become. So despite the hypocrisy and the corruption of people doing business on my behalf, I kept the faith of a belief like Maximus to support the glory of something that meant the world to me, regardless of the people around me. If they were corrupt or lying or making decisions that had me lose the fight, I'd still keep fighting. You have to. If you really love something, you have no choice. It doesn't matter what people are doing around you. You just keep fighting.
There's probably an actor out there watching this right now who may be dealing with similar situations. What would be your advice to an actor that's watching right now who's in a situation where he's trapped with his agent and he doesn't know what to do?
First thing I would say is when you present your argument or your point of view, present it respectfully at first. If that doesn't work, then maybe put a little edge on it. But I would say always question the authority of people that say they have your best interest in mind, and to make sure if in fact they really do and they're doing the work that's necessary to assist you rather than harm you. It's not to say become a paranoid. I would just say ask questions, do your homework, pay attention, make sure that what they say they do. They walk the talk, you know, and don't be afraid to say, hey, look, can we sit down and have do you have a free day or something? Can we have lunch, or can we take a meeting? Can I talk to you on the phone? Whatever the circumstances, sit down and just tell whomever what you feel, what your goals are, and see what, and ask them. So how do you know, we're collaborating here to make something happen together. It's us, not just me. It's you and me together. So how do we, because they always use this we terminology, us, you know, this is good for us. Well, what are you doing that's good for us? And don't feel that you have the right to question what they believe is good for us, because what they believe is good for us may not be good for you. And sometimes it is. It all depends on who you're dealing with, man. It's been my experience, though. If you give the agents and the managers too much power, man, they'll steamroll right over you.
The whole thing back from you, right? Not let you know about opportunities and things like that.
Yeah, there's that element too. Yeah, there's that element too. So I'd say that, you know, just don't give up your power. You can give respect to those who have assisted you, but don't make them God. They're not your daddy. They're not your protector. It's just business. Don't lose sight of the business. Some people tend to romanticize some of these relationships, say, well, he's my friend, she's my friend. And maybe there are these, you know, rare cases where people have relationships like that. I don't know what that's like. I have a manager now, Charles Lago, who's very kind to me and put up with a lot of my PTSD because of things I've been through. So he's very understanding and gives me a lot of leg room to be who I am. So, but it's only taken, you know, almost 4 decades to finally be with somebody who allows me that. I was not always in that position.
So with the next roles coming up, have you dealt with, well, you went back to New York, right? After the first role with Dangerfield and all that. What was your life looking like at that point?
A lot of auditions, and then no auditions. A lot of too much free time, but then auditions, and then got a couple of local jobs, you know, in New York, working on some movies. So that was inspiring, kept me going. And then I decided one day that I was going to go back to California. So I left California and I started auditioning out there, and I started getting work right away out there, man. And then I went on one audition when I was out there, and I met Steven Seagal. And he hired me for a film called Hard to Kill. And then we developed a relationship. He took a liking to me, and then he put me in his other movie, Out for Justice. So I saw, once I went back out there, the possibilities, man. Big pond out there. That's the big pond, and New York was the little pond, you know. And and it came a time where that agent that I was still working with, because I was ignorant, he moved out there finally, and then you know, set up shop and stuff. So I just gravitated toward California and I stayed out there more. And New York got further and further away from me because there was so much more opportunity in California.
It's a big change to go from New York to LA full time and not know anybody really. I mean, you knew some people from doing the other film though, right? Before you went there.
Yeah, it was tough. No, it's shocking, man. Any kind of a transition like that is like death. You have to die to the old life and be born again into the new. So it was hard at first, but then what I came away with was that things were changing, and this idea of home never really existed. It was an illusion. It was illusory. It doesn't last long. It transitions. Nothing lasts. Everything changes. A physicist will tell you that. So I started to see things starting to people, relationships, everything started just becoming more ethereal. It's like a dream, and it was starting to turn into a bad dream. And there was nothing really holding me there anymore.
So when you get out to LA, is there any experiences that stand out in your mind once you get out there?
Yeah, like anything, there's a duality, man. There was real good experience, positive, and then there was negative. The positive was that, like I said, I was getting work. I was on a series about nurses in Vietnam called China Beach, starring Dana Delaney, I think her name was. I can't remember. But I did a series that there was a lot of opportunities to get on set and do television, and I was in, you know, that was positive. You know, I started to learn that apparatus, how to be comfortable in front of the camera, and I just kept, you know, fine tuning and, you know, I guess, you know, the ability that I had times the mechanism. So that was positive. Getting work and people, I wouldn't say validating me, but every time you got a job, it proved, you know, it was for yourself. It secured the notion that you're on the right track, regardless of what people were telling you, which brings me to the other side of things. When you start working and making money, it doesn't even have to be a lot of money, but if you make enough money to pay your bills as a performer, you won the lottery, in my opinion. Forget about any pipe dream about being a movie star. If you can just make a living in a profession that is so competitive, you've already won. The difficulty is that if you surround yourself with, you know, undoubtedly, you're going to surround yourself with other actors or people in the industry because it's an industry town. The problem is you got to be leery. Is that, or I learned that people aren't always happy when you succeed, who are also in the same field, because it's kind of like putting a few people in a room and starving them, and then you throw a piece of bread in there after a week, and they fight over a piece of bread. It doesn't bring out the competitive structure itself. Doesn't bring out the best in people. It's a
Yeah, only one of them gets it, right? Only
well,
one of them gets the bread.
well, by its nature, it's not a collaborative effort. It's not a team sport. It's a track and field event. It's everyone for himself. So what I came away with is people would call me, "Hey, Robert, you working?" They wouldn't ask me how I was doing. They just want to know if I was working. It was always, it might be, "Hey, Robert, how are you?" "Good." "So what have you been up to? You been working?" "Yeah." I'd be like, "Yeah, I just booked something." "Yeah, what is it?" So they pull out the measuring stick on me. They'd be like, "Well, what is it? Is it?" So the measuring stick is, what is it good? How big is it? And what's it worth? In other words, is it a good role? Which I could never understand that question. To me, to get any role is a good role. It means you got a job and it steers you away from having to hand out flyers on Sunset Boulevard. You won. But so I never understood, because I come from a world of no pretense because I grew up in poverty in the project. So I couldn't get my mind around the people that were turning into bankers on me and evaluating like a math equation my the victory of getting a job. Couldn't understand how you can evaluate a job. Once a friend of mine would say, "Hey, I got a job," I'd say, "Hey, man, congratulations. Happy for you, man. Hope they treat you well. Have a great time. If you want to talk about it, fine." But outside of that, the judgment that would come along with the victory was unbelievable, man. I couldn't believe some of the things people would say to me. Or would, you know, and they would try to steal your thunder, man. They'd ask you questions like, you know, how many weeks was always the thing. How is it a big role? How many weeks? And what kind of show is it? Is it a movie? Is it? There was this whole checklist that a lot of people were trained. I don't think it was their fault. I think they were just trained to look at things that way. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it was their hunger. Like I said, back to my metaphor about being so hungry that it doesn't always bring out the best nature of people, you know. And so I learned real quickly to keep my good news to myself. And so I would suggest that to anyone else. Uh, if something happens that's positive, keep, you know, share it with a couple of people who know you really got your back, maybe your loved ones, whoever that is. And then the rest just keep to yourself, because they will confiscate it, or they'll try, or they'll measure it in such a way where you feel like you're losing when you already won the victory. You won, you got the job. And for the next week or so, whatever, you're going to go on set and you're going to make some money, pay your bills, and you're good. And it's a step. It's all about the journey, right? This idea of arriving to me is a fallacy, man, because even when you do arrive, eventually you have to descend. It's the duality of life. That there's a full circle of things, you know. What's over time, things start to fade away. Jimi Hendrix said it best. It's like a circus that comes into town and people feed on it for a while. Oh, look at that. But then it kind of fades away. And it's a temporary thing. It's not permanent. I don't think you become immortal. I don't believe in any of that. There's different cycles of your career where maybe at one point in your career you're more noticeable, others you're not, but that doesn't mean you're irrelevant as an artist. You're still an artist in your core. And that's important to remember when people are in situations like when I was in California, up each other's butts constantly, wanting to know where you're, you know, how relevant you are. So I realized how carnivorous the underbelly of the industry children was. I realized, wow, man, these people are they're they're really confused. And so, you know, just learn to build a thick skin and a wall around yourself, and don't lose focus of your goal.
Yeah, like some people say, "Oh, I made it," but no, you got to keep working. It's not like, "Oh, I made it," and it just stays like that. Like when you went and worked with Rodney Dangerfield and all them people, it comes, and you got to keep it going. It doesn't just stay there.
Yeah, I mean, the camaraderie, I think, is an illusion. I'm not saying it doesn't exist at all. I mean, there's people that will support you, but don't depend on it. Don't rely on it. Don't expect it. And I'm not saying be bitter either. I'm not saying expect the worst. I'm just saying don't react. Just find your zen, man, and just be grateful that you're alive and you're healthy and that you can do something you love. How many people can do this? A lot of people have jobs they hate, man. And so, but the other side of that, though, is that the people that are trying to get in what they think is this special room and world, they don't understand why some of us who've been around for years, who've suffered a great deal for our commitment, why we're not always happy about it. So it's very easy when you look at something like, I don't know, I'll compare it to combat. Unless you've been in combat and been in a firefight, you can't talk to anybody about war and what the PTSD, and you may have won the war and come home and they give you medals and stuff. And from the outside appearance, you seem to be the champion and the hero. But this flip side of it is what you had to go through and endure to achieve that may not feel good. There's other things that come with the win that can affect your psyche. And it may take years for you to heal that aspect of yourself. Ask any veteran who suffers from PTSD. Ask any celebrity who's fallen from grace, who's had to suffer the indignity of media slandering them because they don't look what they once looked like, or they're not as famous as they used to be. So they build people up and tear them down. And people who are so desperate to be in the industry that talk about, well, I'm just trying to get out of my day job and, you know, wish I could be where you guys. Why are you guys so unhappy and bitter about everything? I say, well, do a couple of tours, man. Go to war. Go to the Coliseum and fight for Caesar. Don't play it safe on the periphery in these little microcosms that you think are the war. That's not a war. That's just a local conflict. You want to go to war, go overseas and go to war. You want to go and find out about the industry, go to fucking LA, go to Hollywood, go to the Coliseum and fight and be beheaded a couple of times and have your head handed back to you, put it back on, and then go on down the road. And then talk to me about why.
What's up, everybody? Maureen, how are you? Tom, what's up? Bello, how are you? Tracy, how's everyone doing tonight? I appreciate you taking the time to watch my show. Louis, what's up? Generic. Cindy, how are you? Ken Kniff from Connecticut. What's going on? So I hope you guys like that show. There's one more part to this interview, and I'll be dropping that probably sometime this week coming up. And I got interviews I'm going to be dropping this week with a bunch of different people. I got one with Louis the Lion. I know you guys been anticipating that one. Louis the Lion, shout out to him. You guys will see that interview soon. And I got a bunch coming. Don't miss Mr. Anthony Ramundi tomorrow at 3 o'clock. He's back. Yeah, man. So just make sure you guys stick around. It's going to get good. And if you want, donate to the channel. Cash App, Bill Staxx 2021. All the money that gets donated to the channel goes right back into content. I'm trying to do a bunch of things, but I need funding for it. So if you guys want to help me out, you can donate through Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. The links are in the description of this video, or you can go into the About section, and all the links are there. And I'm going to be taking things to another level. I got a bunch of new guests that are going to be joining me, and I'm going on a major platform this week. I'm going on someone else's podcast, and I'll let you guys know after it gets done, because I hate to tell people things before it gets finished. But I want to give a shout out to Chad Marks. I hope you get better, man. There's a lot of things, a lot of good things going on, and I can't thank all my people out there enough. You guys are all great. Make sure you guys hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell so you can get my videos every time they drop. Till next time. Peace.